For context, I am Brazilian, but I am half Japanese. Half of my father, my grandfather is Japanese. My father is first generation Brazilian. So I'm like a second generation, and um, always been interested in that Japanese heritage part. Even though my heritage is actually Okinawan from the archipelago of Okinawa. I grew up in a largely like pan-Japanese community with like people from all different prefectures and stuff like that. So I from being a kid, always felt closer to Japanese culture in general, I guess. And I went to study fashion later on, and then visual arts. And throughout that path, I've always tried to combine those aesthetic sensibilities of being Brazilian, but being part Japanese at the same time. And something that really called my attention about Japanese costume and fashion was this philosophical part of it, which I think it's what Kodipa was referring to. One concept that I really love exploring that comes from Japanese aesthetics. It's called Ma. It's M-A, Ma. And it's basically a type of empty space. It's called like an interstitial void. It's like an in-between space, which is empty but not empty at the same time. It's sort of like empty but full of possibilities. And basically, when we think of Japanese minimalism and that sort of aesthetic, Ma comes a lot into that because it's the space between things. It can be thought of as space or time or, things for architecture, for music, for fashion, for all sorts of things. And when it comes to clothing, another thing Kuldeepa was referring to that we've talked about in the past was how Japanese fashion designers use this concept of Ma to think about all the potential space between the body and the clothing that we put on top of this body. And that's sort of why sometimes when we think about Japanese fashion, there's a lot of that like oversized stuff and very voluminous things. And we think that it might conceal the body, but I think in their way of thinking, it's more trying to play with that space of between body and clothing. And yeah, for the two pieces I've submitted to the exhibit, if you, I'm not in town anymore, unfortunately, but if you get a chance to go see it, basically I submitted one traditional piece, which is that big kimono. Yeah, you can show it there. That is called actually yukata, which is a summer kimono. It's made usually from cotton, and the main difference from a regular kimono, I would say, is the material, which is cotton instead of silk. And you can wear it. Traditional kimono, you usually wear it with like one or two other layers underneath. And this one, you could wear it without anything underneath. Most people still do wear one layer, but it's not required. And you also wear it with just the sandals with bare feet. You don't need socks to wear this type of garment. And if you go to the exhibit, you're gonna see that the obi is inside the kimono being displayed. It's like a more subdued pattern, but it's inside there, like in the middle. Since that's a very loud print for the yukata, the matching obi, which is the sash, it's much more subdued pattern. And the second piece that I submitted, which is on the next slide, it's a top from a collection I did a while ago back in Brazil, which was inspired by a form of Japanese theater, dance theater called Buto. And it's very interesting. It's like a post-war type of a dance theater, sort of a Japanese avant-garde performance type thing. And you might have seen images of it, which is like these bald dancers all painted white and like contorting. But the origins of it are these two dancers called Hijikata and Kazuo Ono. And they started at some point painting themselves white and everything. But before that, it used to be this really raw, contorting, grotesque type of dance acting. And a lot of feelings about darkness, death, the grotesque, what it was like to be Japanese in the post-war period, that sort of thing. And for this collection, it was with a group, me and two other designers, and we created our own patterns and treatments for the textiles, sort of bringing that type of bodily textures of like muscles and things like that, sort of like the body inside out type thing. So yeah, I had some images of the original collection on the slides. I don't know if I can show it on my screen or not. Let's see if it's gonna show up. I think I need to unblur my, let me see. So this is like the original look. The top is the only thing I have left of this look. That's why it's being displayed like that. But there was this other look too. And yeah, it was basically this collection we made, pulling images from nature, from the body, and from also like atomic bomb clouds and stuff like that.
Wow.
And it was also made using some sustainability goals. We basically worked with this company that makes printed fabrics on an industrial level with these big rollers that roll out the prints. And we created, I think, one original print, but the other ones were actually us going there, choosing old rolls with old patterns and combining them in like one roll from this flower pattern with one roll from this cloud pattern, and combining them in crazy colors and creating a new pattern from it. So that was kind of the gist of it. Yeah. So I saw some people very kindly commenting on the side here. I also think Ma relates to sari a lot, to Kalika here. And actually, I think sari is related to kimono in a lot of ways, because in Japan, when you make a kimono, you actually buy the bolt of fabric, which is like this wide. And at least back in the day, you would buy the bolt and you make the kimono yourself. And if you were to wash that kimono, you actually take it all apart and wash the individual pieces of fabric. So it kind of has this no waste vibe to it, because in theory you use the entire bolt to make the kimono and you don't waste any of it. And I think that relates to the one piece of fabric thing of the sari a lot, definitely, and the draping as well. Yeah. And otherwise, if someone has comments or questions.
I have a question, Elise. First of all, I think the Japanese aesthetic sense, which is in everything, from the fabric to everything, and then the vibrancy in Brazil's culture, combining those two in one is such a unique thing that what you're doing. Just
Absolutely.
itself, it's so beautiful just to hear that out. So my question is, I was looking at the pictures that you showed that are kept in the place, and if I'm mistaken, please correct me. I saw that the hands have some open space under arms. Is that correct? Because somebody gave me something which is Japanese, and it feels like the hands are there, like there's a piece here, and there is an openness here. Is
Yes,
that
yes.
what is the purpose of it? That's what I wanted to hear.
I'm sorry, I have a cough. The yukata and the kimonos, the sleeve is like a tube. So it's only partly closed, but the inside part is completely open. And one of the reasons is, well, there's many reasons. You can use that to sort of show off the lining or the second layer that you're wearing if you're choosing to wear coordinating pattern or color. And a lot of women use that as a pocket too. So they like put things in there. And it's also, especially in the yukata, which is the summer kimono, it's very good just for ventilation as well. But it is, yes, it's closed on the front part near the hand, but here it's actually, it connects to the shoulder and then it's pretty much open.
Correct. Yeah. So I did not know that was. So it's good to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully, if you're in town, you can go see it up close and see what it's like. But yeah, it is open. I also forgot I had a picture too, just to see what it's like on. It was like me wearing it. Let me see. It's like with the obi and everything. It's kind of what it looks like.
Wow.
Very beautiful.
Very
But
beautiful.
yeah.
I love that.